All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming today. I'm Tiffany Muller, and I am the President and Executive Director of In Citizens United Action Fund, a group that's really harnessing the power of our 4 million members across the country to pass reform legislation here in Congress. And today I'm so honored to be joined by so many of our newest Democratic members of Congress who in their short time in office have already left a mark here. In the 2018 election, a wave of candidates campaigned on reforming government and unrigging the system so that it really put people first. These candidates were responding to voters' frustration and anger about a Washington that's too often controlled by lobbyists and special interests. Americans know that every aspect of their lives, from drug abuse and the opioid epidemic to gun violence to tax policy and more, is affected by the amount of money a handful of wealthy individuals and special interests spend on access and influence. They made a promise to voters that they would clean up Washington and make government work for them, and that's exactly what they're doing. And it's the reason we're here today, because the House of Representatives will vote on the For the People Act tomorrow. The For the People Act is a once-in-a-generation reform legislation that will help root out corruption, end the dominance of big money and special interests, and give the American people their voice back in government. It will restore the promise of our democracy. But the bill would not be possible without the leadership of those standing with me. Last October, these 11 members led a coalition of more than 100 House challenger candidates, including 47 from the new class, who sent a letter to the House of Representatives and said that the very first bill that the new Congress needed to do was to pass a comprehensive reform agenda. It put Washington on notice and sent a clear message to those who defend the rigged system. And once in Congress, they worked hard to keep that promise. Thanks to them, the Democratic caucus introduced the For the People Act, let's try that again, as H.R. 1. And the entire House of Representatives will be voting on it tomorrow. It's really a historic moment for our democracy. In addition to the leadership these members have shown, millions of Americans across the country have mobilized to show support for this. On behalf of In Citizens United Action Fund and our 4 million members, I want to thank you all for your leadership and commitment to reform. Before I hand it off to Representative Jason Crow, I'd like to take the time to address the comments that Senator Mitch McConnell made yesterday. He's refusing to bring H.R. 1 to the Senate floor and says he doesn't understand the problem that H.R. 1 is trying to solve. And that's because Senator McConnell is part of the problem that H.R. 1 is trying to solve. Politicians in Washington who are too beholden to special interests and big donors, instead of the people, are the problem. Right now, when people are making it harder to vote and shutting people out of the system, they are part of the problem. In 2016, 40% of eligible voters did not vote. Even in 2018, a record year for midterm turnout, 50% of eligible voters did not vote. H.R. 1 seeks to fix this. There are problems in our democracy, and H.R. 1 is a once-in-a-generation chance for real reform. Senator McConnell should let the Senate vote on this important legislation. And if he does not, it's only because he's afraid of the consequences for his caucus. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Representative Jason Crow from Colorado's 6th Congressional District.
Thank you, Tiffany, for your leadership on this very critical issue. You know, it's no coincidence that the largest freshman class since Watergate is also the class that is leading and pushing on this critical reform measure. We are the class born of voters' frustrations with a broken system, whether it be the flood of dark money in our elections, the pay-to-play politics of Capitol Hill, or the self-dealings of our current president. Americans are fed up. And as first-time candidates, we uniquely understand that. As veterans and young parents, teachers, and business owners, we have seen firsthand how the rigged system impacts our families and our communities. Because of money in politics and Citizens United, Congress has failed to act on climate change, gun violence, the opioid epidemic, and so many other critical issues facing our democracy. Instead, politicians are more beholden to mega donors than the constituents that they were elected to serve. It has created gridlock and paralysis at a time when we need bold action. So before we even got to Congress, we made a promise to voters that we would be different, that we would reject the influence of special interests and call for reform to be a top priority. As first-time elected officials, we had no problem standing up to the system because we were never a part of it to begin with. In the Army, I was taught the values of servant leadership. As a captain, that meant leading by example. I was the first to jump out of a plane, and only then would my soldiers follow. And as a member of Congress, it means holding ourselves to the highest standards of ethics, accountability, and transparency. And H.R. 1 does exactly that. If we reform the system and stem the flow of money in our political system, there is no stopping what we can achieve. That's why I am very proud to support H.R. 1 and put the power back where it belongs, with the people of our communities. Thank you.